And this morning on Who Are We Gonna Talk About? Wait a minute.
You're here. Look at
Hey,
that.
look at that.
All right.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Happy Monday or Tuesday or really whenever, whatever day you're watching this.
We hope it's Monday though, because this will start your week off right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you preached yesterday.
I did.
Yeah, and you did not go too long. That was really, thanks for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I try to let everybody know the second that I'm gonna walk up on the stage, it's gonna be an early lunch, guys.
Maybe I'll get there. I'll try to follow your lead.
Yeah,
this week. So you followed up Jacob's, and we were just talking about how Jacob's sermon kind of set up the mechanics, and yours brought the application.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how that kind of comes together? Because you were obviously heard Jacob's message, but you didn't like get his manuscript and go, okay, here's how I'm going to fit this together.
Right.
But you're, speaking from Hebrews in the next thing, so it makes sense.
Yeah. So we both were preaching out of a section of Hebrews that's very tightly talking about the dwelling place of God among his people in the Old Testament context.
Mm-hmm.
And so once you separate out the parts that can naturally make us feel disconnected from the Old Testament system, what you're left with is a God who chose to dwell with his people. And mechanically, Jacob went through piece by piece and kind of outlined the architecture of why this is all so important and magnificent and all of that. And so when I took the ball, my goal was to help everyone, as many people from different contexts, see that because of that, we can take the idea that we worship a God who has chosen to be with us. And through this unfolding picture of Jesus and what he did and the extent in which he did it and the extent in which it affects us and the significance of all of that, those two things combined, you now see how from Old Testament to New Testament, God has been choosing to dwell with his people.
Yeah.
And through the person of Jesus, that idea of drawing people, that long biblical story that's literally been going on since the garden, finds its fulfillment in the person of Jesus.
See, that was one of the points that I thought was most fascinating and important that you made yesterday, was when you look at Adam and Eve in the garden and God dwelling with them, and then the separation that occurred in the garden. And this is like, I don't know why I've never thought this way before. Probably because I was just waiting for you to talk about it. But when God dwelt in the tabernacle, it was the first time he was back dwelling with his people.
Yep.
Like there were hundreds and hundreds of years that gone between the garden and the tabernacle. And so I just couldn't help but ponder that for a while, that when God dwelt in his tabernacle and the looking ahead to Jesus, which both you and Jacob brought that out, like all the things happening in this tabernacle are pointing to the one to come, to the Messiah. It wasn't just a person, it was the whole concept of God dwelling with man. The whole purpose of looking ahead was there will come a time where God will be here, not just a Messiah coming to rescue. And I think that's why it just struck me that that's why the Jewish people in Jesus's day had been looking for deliverance from Rome, had been looking for this Messiah to rise up and rescue Israel, reestablish the throne of David. Now this dynasty is complete, and we will now rule this nation on our own. And that was never the plan. It was never the point. But the point was to return to God being present with humanity. And that just kind of blew my mind to bring those pieces together. It was amazing.
Yeah, when you realize what the idea of God was to the Jewish people, you come to understand a little bit better why the followers, the Jewish people of Roman occupied Israel were looking for what they were looking for.
Yeah.
They were looking for big,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not what they got. So in looking for big, they missed what was actually happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why I always say, like, we need to make sure that we humanize everybody that's involved in those stories, because it gives us a better idea, including back to the Old Testament, including back to Exodus and all of these events where you're seeing these, the formation of the law and the formation of this society.
Yeah.
And looking at the architecture with this idea that it's the same God. The circumstances are wildly different, but it's the same God.
Yeah.
And and you can, when you look at that continuous nature of the story of the Bible, that's when you can start to build a character profile, for lack of a better phrase.
That's a good way to think about it.
Right. Yeah. And so, like, you can say, okay, historically, as I've followed this story, God has worked in this way. And so now when I'm watching Jesus and I'm watching the ways that Jesus teaches and the ways he acts and things like that, suddenly it maybe takes a little bit of the strangeness off of it, to say, like, okay, I might not understand every single thing that's happening here, but this is congruent with the picture of God that the Bible has been painting the entire time. And when I looked at that idea of, like, okay, so you take the idea apart, and God has been pulling his people back to him for all of this time, and wanting to dwell with his people for all of this time. And I get back to the garden, and to take you guys behind the scenes a little bit. Originally it was just sin on the paper. This is where sin enters the conversation, and it just felt hollow. Like, yes, that's not an incorrect statement, but it was missing something. And that's when I made the connection that when humanity sinned, the instinct was to hide.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to pull it forward into the application parts of yesterday's message, our instinct is, when we sin, or when we're working through the complications of this life, and there's still those jagged edges, there's still those parts of us that have been hit or have been affected, and we don't know what to do with them. The human instinct in us, for all of those tens of thousands of years and all of this time, has not changed. We still hide. Our instinct is to pull away because we feel like it's it's insufficient to be in the presence of God, while the whole time God's like, no, like, that's,
I want to be that, like, I want you in my presence.
Exactly. And that's, I am the one that will help that heal or grow or develop, you know?
So I want to jump ahead. I want to take that thought and jump ahead a little bit in your message when you talked about conscience. Because this is the connection that I saw. A guilty conscience is what makes us hide. Like, ultimately, our conscience bothers us because, or the whole concept of conscience is this thing in the back of our minds that says you need to hide, or this is the thing that makes you want to hide, because if it's exposed, you'll be known for whatever. People will see who you really are, or people will, this facade that you've put up, whatever it is. Conscience is the thing that says you're not presenting in truth. You're not presenting what is real. And so our response to that is to hide, to create a facade or create a persona, or to pretend it didn't exist. And If you think about a relationship that is damaged, then we remove ourselves from that relationship. It's like, what's what is the what's the reason there's tension in relationships? Is because we're not admitting the truth to each other. We're not clearing the air. That's what people want to do. Let's get together, clear the air, talk about what's going on. Well, the conscience is kind of all wrapped up, or all of these concepts are wrapped up in this idea of conscience, where there's something wrong and we have chosen to hide from what is wrong rather than be exposed by it. So it's the same thing that happened in the garden. It's we keep hiding. And I think that was one of the most beautiful pictures that came out when you were speaking yesterday, is talking about that clearing of the conscience that Christ, I don't remember the wording exactly, you probably do, but what Christ did removed this need to hide.
Yeah, and that's why I tried to be inclusive on the idea that whether it's something like you enter into a context, right? You're meeting people for the first time. You're having these conversations with people for the first time. You're developing relationships for the first time. And they see you from day one of that interaction. And so they are building their idea of you from day one of that interaction. You come to that with the X number of years of life that you've lived up to that point. With all of your experiences, both good and bad, with all of your limitations, strengths, and weaknesses, all of it. It makes up who you are. And so it's natural for me to say it is significant. Like when I say it's natural, it's very human to say it is significant to this context that you see me as this. Or that you see this side of me. Or that you don't see that side of me. And so in one facet, you're guarding against this part of you that you have deemed insufficient, unfinished, dirty, broken, whatever your word is. You're guarding that because you don't think that needs to be seen. That's a weak point. Accentuate your strengths, hide your weaknesses. Now, we can do that with people and maybe not think that much about it. Maybe not stop and put every single lyric to it like I just did. But when we understand our relationship with God as an actual relationship, like if there's anything that I have tried to draw out over the last several times that I have preached that Hebrews is telling us, is it's a reminder that this is more than just I prayed a prayer and now I'm good. I've gotten to the other side of the equation. Good. You know what? Salvation, beautiful. It's literally line 1, verse 1, page 1 of the story. It's everything else that happens after that. And so when we understand it in the context of a relationship, like I said yesterday, then the teachings of Jesus unlock. Then we understand this whole thing has taken on a new shape because I'm not just working through a checklist of behavior modification. I'm developing. I'm becoming. I'm forming into this different person, this different creation. And that's over time, that's over decade, that's over a long stretch. But if we don't take that seriously and we've preset ourselves to guard, we're going to do the same thing with God because it's still a relational context, whether we're caring for it or not. Likewise, you have an altercation with somebody, you are in conflict, and there's like this emotional crescendo that takes place when you just are trying to apologize. It can feel like the noise, like you're progressively turning the volume knob up as you're engaging in this conversation, because in this moment you have to work through guilt, maybe shame, maybe consequence or whatever cocktail of after effect has taken place because of this breakdown in relationship, that sometimes it just feels easier to not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like to
absolutely.
avoid the hard conversation, to just be like, they know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Without actually taking time.
Or what difference will it make? Like you talk yourself out of it. What difference will it make? We can go at it, talk about this, maybe work something out. It's not going to change anything. Down the road, there's still going to be this blow up, or there's still going to be them. I'm still going to be me.
Yeah.
There's going to be issues.
And the thing that I found in processing through, because I hit that hiding point, and then I took a step back, and I really sat with how insanely human Hebrews is, for how much, like, if you haven't otherwise watched The Bouncing Ball up to this point, there's so much theology in Hebrews. Like, part of preaching Hebrews is sorting through which theological concepts to pull forward and which to just let kind of ride along in the backseat.
What you leave on the table.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things you said that so I don't exactly remember what it was that you said. It was towards the end, but I thought it was such an important point that I started writing other things down. I couldn't remember what you said and what I wrote down. But you reminded me of it just now. So this concept of, as God, like the attributes that God calls us to show, to live. I think forgiveness is a good example. And you may have even used this yesterday, but forgiveness takes away our natural tendency is to hold a grudge, to be resentful. Forgiveness removes that natural tendency to hold the grudge and to be forgetful or vengeful even. So the goal is not to just be a more forgiving person. What Christ does in us is change us so that we're letting go of the vengeance, the desire for vengeance, or the desire or this resentment. And so the character qualities of Christ counteract our natural sinful character. And that's what brings the healing. That's what brings the freedom. So when you look at, you could list a dozen character qualities of what being a Christian is supposed to look like, without ever recognizing that each one of those counteract our natural character that will that'll tear relationships apart. So every character quality that Christ comes to bring us is a relational dynamic and builds a relational dynamic, but they all have to counteract the natural one that we carry with us that will tear these things apart. I've never had thought about that counteraction. So instead of like being more forgiving and just forcing it, it's okay, Christ has to change me into a more forgiving person, which means I have to be able to let go and get rid of this resentment potential, this vengeance desire. Like those are, they're clearly counteractive.
Yeah. And what you just described is the hinge point between the type and shadow of the law and the fulfillment of Jesus. Because when you boil down what the law is, it is a series of agreements between a deity and a people. That's the arrangement that we've got on the mountain. And when you boil down what the law is doing, it's giving people a different context to live in. And in the measurement is you do these things, and this is these actions are the way, and those actions are supposed to be teaching you something. Whereas with Jesus, you have the fulfillment of the idea that people, in striving to do those things, will always fall short. Why do you think every single preacher in all of existence has used the analogy of seeing where your heart is when you're driving? Because you get jump scared, because something happens so fast on the road that you don't have time to sit there and methodically sort out all of the boxes. Nope. Likely what's on the tip of your tongue is exactly what's coming out of your mouth. And that's so when you realize, like, it's that the actions in and of themselves are not the thing that cleanses sin, but they are teaching us something. And then you have Jesus, and you understand that it is through the triune power of God that we are reconciled back to him. Then in the middle of that is the embodied life.
Yes.
That word sounds complicated, but embodied just means I'm living it. I am in my carbon-based life form. The things I'm doing are an attempt to bring about the ways of life.
Yeah.
And that's following Jesus is that, but it's not just to change ourselves. It's because we're responding to the value system that God is calling us to. And when we talk about tabernacle and sacrifices and priests and all of that sort of jazz, there's only so many ways that you can keep bringing these topics up. But the point isn't just vegetable soup with all of these concepts. The point is each part of the puzzle, each part of the worship life of Israel was intended to be an aspect of the full life that we have now, not just to come in Jesus. And so for me, looking at this topic, looking at this concept, especially when I made the connection point of from the beginning through to now, this is all the boots on the ground, day-to-day life of what it means to follow Christ. And what Hebrews is doing is showing us how that's been the point from the start.
Yeah. And I think what you said just made a connection back to Jeremiah, when God says, I will write my law in their hearts. Like, there's going to come a time when the things that are in the law here that's showing the behavioral change, I'm going to write it on their hearts. So, like, I'm going to actually change their will. I'm going to actually change how people function, and how, in order, exactly like you said, to embody a full life, which is what Jesus did. Was he embodied what a full life, fully devoted to living the will of God, looks like. And then says, hey, I've made this possible for you.
I think that's probably
a good place. Point. Yeah. Good job. All right. Well, here is our written prayer for this morning. Dear Lord, today and every day I will praise you. I will come to you with hope in my heart and words of gratitude on my lips. Let me follow the footsteps of your Son, and let my thoughts, my prayers, my words, and my deeds praise you now and forever. Amen.
Father, I thank you for the beautiful truth that you've given us in the words of the Bible, that we are in a context where we can keep turning to you, that we don't have to live only halfway with you. So, Father, I pray that you give us the strength and the wisdom and the courage to be able to live out of that place freely inside of grace, handling the things of this life that need to be confronted or worked through or processed. Father, I thank you for the fact that you are for us and with us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thanks for being with us. Hope you have a great week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.